Now we're live. Hello there.
Hi.
So, hello and welcome to the 21st Century Writer, a podcast devoted to helping you, the self-published author, on the journey with your works, stuff that you should know, and most of all, the mindset to help you along, because that's a big part of it. My very special guest today is Toni Causey, who I have known for
Years.
I think we were probably in kindergarten, maybe.
Had to be.
Preschool, maybe.
Preschool.
Yeah. And she has had a fascinating and really interesting journey along this in the writing life with ups and downs.
Yeah. That's an interesting way to put it.
You may notice that I do not have my co-host here today because Hannah is off, I don't know, having a life and having a vacation and things. I don't know how I feel about that. Oh, happy. I feel happy.
Good.
I'm going to try to keep the ball rolling on my own. And Toni is here to help me along.
We've known each other enough time. I think we're going to have a hard time stopping it at an hour.
Drink.
Oh, drink.
Okay, so before I get going, you're having a little trouble hearing me?
I am a little bit.
Okay.
If I hadn't just used this computer, I would think it was me, but
how about now?
that's
no? Now?
No.
Now?
Now. There you are.
Okay. Oh dear. Well, I hope we got the intro. Maybe I'll have to do it again. Okay. So, hello and welcome.
Hi.
So, Toni, a little bit about you, about your history. We met back in preschool when we were both working on screenwriting. This was actually even before I went to USC.
Yeah.
And then you moved from screenwriting into novel writing. And you published 3 books with St. Martin's Press, I believe.
Right.
And then you had a little break from writing. And now you're getting back into it with a self-published novel, an indie published novel.
It's kind of a weird hybrid, and I can hear myself on your end. You got it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. It's a weird hybrid. It's I was going to go completely self-published, 100%, and I ended up meeting a small press publisher that I adored. She wanted to handle the print side of things, which, as you know, with self-publishing, you just don't have a lot of print options. You can do print on demand, which I actually was planning to do. I was perfectly happy to do that. And she came along and read the book and really liked the book. I had a couple of offers from some other small presses, and I didn't like their contracts, and I didn't like what they wanted me to give away specifically. And with this particular small press, I still get to do all the self-publishing things that I wanted to do. I get Amazon, I get a lot of, things that I wanted to keep. And she's doing some of the stuff that I wasn't going to be able to do anyway. So it's kind of a win-win. And I'm delighted with what she's done so far. So,
okay. Wow.
It's a very difficult trajectory. You can't plan for it. You can't say, oh, I'm going to be a hybrid author today, because it doesn't work that way. Yeah. And finding somebody like this was really more a case of completely accidentally stumbling upon them. It was not anything I did that was smart. And I wish I could say, I was so smart, I did this, but I wasn't. I just got lucky and different people read it.
So we can get to all that. I have the feeling that a lot of authors, the story changes in the telling, and they do become smarter the more that they tell the story. And at the very end, it becomes, yes, this was my grand plan from the beginning.
Oh yes, I did all of this.
Yes.
No.
Okay, so let's go back. You were doing screenwriting, and as we all know, you can die of encouragement in Hollywood because everyone loves your stuff. They just don't want to pay you for it.
Yeah, very, very slowly die of encouragement.
Yes.
Painfully.
And you had a very fun screenplay about a woman named Bobby Faye.
Mm-hmm.
And someone encouraged you to write this as a novel?
They did. Ironically, it was Samantha Sprecher, who was an executive producer for Billy Crystal's production company at the time. And I did not submit it to her to buy. We had actually sort of developed a friendship over several screenplays, and I'd go out there, and she was always one that was, hey, come meet me, whether it's good for me or not. And Samantha was one of those wonderful people that you meet in Hollywood, that she does do things for people, and she connects people, and if something's not right for her, but she knew something was right for somebody else, she'd get on the phone and call them, and before you know it, I'd have a meeting with this other person. So she's just that kind of person. But she sat me down, proverbially, I was in Baton Rouge at the time. She was on the phone, and she said, "This is more a novel. Your writing is more novel-like." And she's very complimentary. She loved getting my screenplays, but she always knew my screenplays would take longer to read. And, I'm cramming every little word I can in every crevice in that screenplay. You have these certain limited pages. And I was like, but I can still do X, Y, or Z. And I didn't realize I was just a frustrated novelist, and
good to find out.
Yeah. So she basically said, you should try this that way. And I started writing a few chapters, and I was terrible at it because I had lost all those skills. In the MFA program, you do, prose. But then I switched over in the middle of my MFA program into screenwriting, and it strips you of all of those interiority prose skills, because everything is, in a screenplay. What you see and what you hear, it's third person, it's very, camera, focused. And a friend of ours that Kathy Mackle, read the first draft and said it's Drek, and very kindly, said it in a way that I could hear it, and said, I know you know how to do this, go back and do it again. And I was trying to write
the prose version.
The sample chapters to send out to somebody. And I finally got a couple of chapters done, and a friend of mine that was staying with me at the time sent it off to a woman named Rosemary Edgehill that I did not know had been an editor at one point in New York. And I just knew her as a friend of my friend. And she said, oh, she'll love it. She'll want to read it. And at that point, I'm like, that's great. Anybody I can get feedback from who's a willing victim, that's fantastic.
As I was joking with Robert Gregory Brown another week, the biggest lie in Hollywood is I have a really great screenplay here, and the second biggest lie is I'd love to read it.
Yeah.
The hardest thing in the world is to get somebody to read your stuff.
Yeah. It really is, especially all the way through. You get so used to, in the Hollywood meetings, you find out, God love them, they've got a lot of things that they're trying to read. They really do. And I met a lot of wonderful people. But they have such a limited amount of time that what they start doing is they skim, and they're reading the dialogue, and they're not reading the action scenes. So then, the action lines that actually tell you what's going on. So then you have these meetings with people, and they go, well, why doesn't, such and such happen? And you're kind of like, well, that was on page 2. And oh, they had just totally skipped that line, and it would happen over and over and over. It'll drive me crazy.
Okay, so eventually your novel, which at this point is a couple of chapters in a screenplay, gets bought.
That was really bizarre. It was kind of a stupid level of bizarre. It was, when I sent the 3 chapters off to my friend of a friend, Rosemary Edgehill, she read the screenplay, and then she read the 3 chapters, and she gave me a few, edits on the chapters, but it was actually at that point I'd finally kind of gotten back in the groove of prose. I'd gotten in the groove of the voice. And Bobby Faye as a character, I've always pictured as Wile E. Coyote going over the cliff. You see, right as she's going, that oh shit moment, going, that's how she came to me. That's who she was as a character. And getting that in that voice, getting that she's not a complete screw up herself.
Right.
But things are disastrous around her all the time. And she's really fighting just to try to make the chaos, go away and make sense and save her brother. Rosemary read it and said, yeah, you should pitch this. And I'm like, nobody buys things on 3 chapters. I was just trying to get a handle on, do I have the voice? Because I'm going to go write the book. Right. I know that as a first-time novelist, they're not even going to read 3 sample chapters from some unknown in the middle of Baton Rouge.
I just love that I have all these friends who are like, no one will do this. I've never sold a screenplay, so I'll sell a screenplay on a pitch. I've never sold something, so I'm gonna do this.
Yeah. Like, it's just, it's kind of like,
I never want to hear that something can't be done because I probably know someone who's done it.
How can you back your way into a career? I know. It's just like, I don't know how to do anything. But I told her it wouldn't work. And she wanted me to write a synopsis of, the story, because she was going to pitch it to an editor friend of hers. And I'm like, well, I don't even know how to do that. So she tried to explain to me how to write the kind of synopsis that a book would require. And I sucked at it. I sucked at it so bad that she wrote me big, scratching red marks all over it. This is terrible. You can do better. And she tried to give me pointers. And so I resubmitted it to her. And she said, you actually managed to make it worse. I don't know how, but you did. You made it worse. So then I was like, okay, I think I understand what you want. And what shifted for me, and this is now what I try to tell people. You're not writing a summary like you did for your English paper. What you're doing is you're telling the story like you would tell a friend if you went and saw the movie version of it and you want your friend to go see it. You're not going to tell them every little thing. You're going to give them the highlights and the emotional punch and the hook to get them to pay their whatever amount of money to get into that movie theater. It's the same concept. You're telling the sort of nonfiction story of this fictional character. And you're doing it like you would, you've got 10 inches of a column in a newspaper. That's all you've got. You've got to have your hook. You've got to get them involved in that story emotionally. And then you've got to have some sort of payoff at the end where they go, I got to read this. I want to get into this. And when I made that switch, because I was an old newspaper / magazine writer, then I knew what to do. So the next one, she was like, I don't know what happened, but this worked. And I was like, well, yeah. I finally relied back on skills I actually did know how to do. So
okay. So you got a contract with St. Martin's for 3 books.
Yep.
And I assume that it was for 3 books in the Bobby Faye series.
It was for a trilogy. They specifically, it was kind of funny because I landed the agent based on the fact that I had an offer on the table. And the agent called me and said, is this a standalone or is this a trilogy? And I said, trilogy? And she said, good answer. And she hung up the phone. And so she called me back. And she said, you have a deal for 3 books. I'm like, do they know that this first book is not written? You did tell them that, right? Because this is crazy. I've never written an entire novel before, ever. Even in the MFA program, I wrote short stories.
Right.
So
surprise.
It was a little insane.
Okay, so you start now. This is really before the advent of self-publishing. This is 2005. Okay, wow, 10 years. Wow, Jesus.
Yeah, the book's sold, and what was really weird about it, when it sold, chick lit had been on the rise and it was growing hotter and hotter.
Right.
They really wanted to take advantage of that. The book was not written when they bought it. I wrote the book and turned it in on deadline, and they decided, for reasons that I never really fully understood, that instead of publishing it that year, they were going to take another 6 months and really build it, you know, and instead of it coming out in 2006, they wanted it to come out in 2007 because they wanted to do all these wonderful things for it. And in the early 2007, chick lit died. Boom. Just like somebody cut the faucet off and it just died. And then they were scrambling like, oh, how do we market this? Because even the original cover, everything that we were planning to do would not work. So it was that's why it's a little bit confusing as to when did I start, because I actually had the second book written before the first book came out. So.
Wow. Okay. So you had the series, and you worked with one of the big publishers. How would you, in general, describe your path? Now, obviously, one big thing is it takes a long time to get a book out. So by the time your book comes out, boom, how they're going to market it is completely over,
Right.
Which is problematic, to say the least. Anything else that you want to say about it?
Well, what I learned early on, and even though I had a really good relationship with the publisher, I mean, Matthew Shear was incredibly beloved by everybody for a reason. He was a wonderful man, and he passed away a couple of years ago. But and my editor there, Nicole Argyres, just biggest champion I could have. She was fantastic. She was a fabulous editor. There were times I would want to beat her with a stick, but I'm quite sure the opposite was true.
I'm pretty sure, if you don't know Toni, there's a time when she wants to beat everyone with a stick.
So I'm sure there were a lot of times.
Don't take it personal.
Yeah, she felt the same about me, I'm sure. But I know she did. I know I drove her crazy. But it was a great relationship. What was frustrating, and it was frustrating for them as much as it was for me, is a big company like that cannot be nimble. They just can't. They cannot turn on a dime. They can't change their fundamental modality of how they market. They can't say, oh, we have absolutely no proof that this new idea that this writer has will work, so we'll throw thousands of dollars at it. They're just not going to do that. They've got to see some evidence. They're responsible to corporate, to bosses and stuff. So there were times where I would see, oh, I could do this or I could do that, and I would have to jump in with my own money and do it, and it would work. I would know after the fact that had they been able to jump in and do it on their level, across the U.S., it would have worked 10 times better. Yeah. But you can't prove that. And then once the opportunity is gone, it's gone, Yeah. So that, after doing a lot of my own additional marketing to sort of fill in the gaps where they just couldn't go, and it, not through lack of desire. I mean, I work with some really sweet people over there, really, really sweet, but it just wasn't what they did. They like last year, I wrote and said, I'm about to release 3 free Bobby Faye short stories to all of my newsletter. I'm going to put them on Amazon for 99 cents, though. I can bundle them if you want and give them to you and bundle them with the first book. They still have all the rights. And if you'll drop the price of the first book, I think it will pump up the sales of the series again, because I still have a steady stream of people buying the book, just enough to stay above that threshold so I can't get them back. And I've tried to buy them back, and they won't sell them back to me. And they wrote back, and it was a really sweet note. And she said, I think this is a wonderful idea. It's just not what we do. And I guess in their shoes, if they do it for me, chaos would ensue, because then every author they've got, of which there are, how many hundreds or even thousands, are going to go, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You did that for her, and her books are old, as old as my books. Why don't you do that for me? And then all of a sudden, it's all this extra layers of work for all these people that already have full-time jobs.
I would just like to point out that by writing these short stories, increasing interest in the series, then the sales of the series go up.
I know. I shot myself in the foot with that one.
That's
It was one of those things where I kept waiting until the sales would drop below the threshold so I could get them back. And when they got close to the threshold, I started asking for them back and offering for them back and not getting them back. And simultaneously, I had enough readers writing to me saying, when are we going to see blah, blah, blah? When are we going to, they wanted something else. And I was already shifting gears into this really dark book. And I felt like I hadn't really wrapped up that series in a final sort of way.
Right.
Fans, I mean, it is wrapped up at the end of the third book. You don't have to buy the short story, but the short story is a little extra,
right,
closure if you want. And I just sort of felt like I owed it to them. That's why I gave them away free. They're still free on my newsletter, and when you go to Amazon and you click on it, it says free to newsletter subscribers on the description of the short stories. So I'm always shocked that people buy them.
Yeah.
You can go subscribe and then unsubscribe. And I've sent out exactly this many newsletters in the last year and a half because I'm lazy. So it's not like you're getting spam from me.
Yeah. Okay. So you published the third Bobby Fay book, and I don't remember when precisely that was. 2010, maybe?
2009. Okay. Right before the third book was due to come out, because the first two came out as trade.
Right.
They decided that since the market had shifted away from the chick lit as much as it had, they thought maybe it would bounce, but it didn't. It just lie there dead, no breathing life into it. So they came to us and suggested that they re-release the 3 books in mass market and change the covers to reflect that it was more, that there was some romance in it. There's not a lot of romance in my books. There is a love triangle of sorts, but it's secondary to the other issues.
The other hysterics going on.
Other hysterics, the other chaos. And I tell people it's Die Hard in a swamp. It really is. It's not intended to have anything more substantial to it than Die Hard in a swamp. It's cotton candy.
Did you hear that they've just greenlighted a Die Hard prequel?
No.
Yes. And I'm like, the Die Hard story starts with a guy who's at his wife's Christmas party. That's the prequel.
Did you hear about the pitch one time when somebody said, oh, I know, I have another one. It's Die Hard in a building. And I'm like,
yes. These are all real stories, folks. We're not making these up. So you, I don't want to say stepped away from writing, but you reached a point where sort of continuing on the path that you were on was not what you wanted to do.
It wasn't, because I
I hope I'm phrasing that okay.
You are being very delicate. I appreciate it.
It's something new. It's something new I'm trying.
Well, you don't have to be for my sake. I burned out, for lack of a better term. I really got tired of banging my head against the wall of the corporate way of doing things, in spite of the fact that I really had been essentially had some of the fairy dust sprinkled on me, and I had some very nice things done for me.
You had I don't know what it's called in Publishers Weekly terms, but you had a good deal.
I did.
You, I mean, you had a better deal than I think a lot of initial writers get.
I did. I really did. And I had attention, from the publisher. I had attention from the marketing department, and they worked on different plans and stuff. And I think it was just in that, it's like you get invited to the party and you find out that your invitation is like 2 hours later than what it should have been, and you get there and the party's winding down. It was kind of that feeling. It was like the stuff that I was writing, the party was kind of winding down on it, and I had no idea. And I think it was that delay of that year really that made all the difference in the world. And that was a corporate decision, because the book was finished. The book was finished in time.
Yeah.
And we could have gone forward with it. But at the time, I was on board. I mean, I'm not blaming them. I was on board because it sounded logical. It sounded like a good plan, you know. But I think, too, the other problem was I did not realize when I sold Bobby Faye that I was going to get locked into having to be comedic about everything. Yeah. Because even though I like being comedic and I can tell funny stories and I can make people laugh and stuff, a lot of what I had written prior to Bobby Faye had been very, very dark.
Yeah.
Screenplays that had gone out that had done the best. I actually had a screenplay that went out that was told from a man's point of view. He was a dishonored vet, you know, Gulf War vet. And I was telling this, and he had been dishonorably discharged. And I was telling the story from his point of view, and it was an action thriller sort of story where people are trying to frame him for treason, you know, and trying to smuggle a type of uranium out of the country that could be reprocessed into uranium bombs. I will tell you that I actually witnessed some of that happening and know for a fact how some of this stuff was getting smuggled out.
Right.
Well, the government caught on to it, and it was all very hush-hush. So I was able to use a lot of that darkness in that screenplay, but I was used to writing incredibly dark stuff, and Bobby Faye was such an aberration for me. And then for her to sell and need to be known as Bobby Faye, people would always sort of assume I was Bobby Faye, the alternate ego, which was very flattering. But I was kind of like, you know, she is this 28 years old, gun-toting, balls to the wall, take no prisoner, you know, hell on wheels.
And you're really past that phase of your life.
Well, okay, maybe not as much as I but she was single.
Yeah, good point.
Children, so lots different. And I always thought it was, she was taller than me. So I was always happy when people thought it was Bobby Faye.
Doing those elements is always really fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
6 Minute Mile, yes.
Yes, yes.
So you were kind of burned out.
Mm-hmm.
And you had some other stuff going on.
Yeah.
You moved to an amazing place. God. And now you live in New Orleans.
I do.
Now, did you stop writing altogether during this period?
I did. The thing that you're being very delicately dancing around is my brother became terminally ill, and it has taken me 3 years to be able to say that out loud without falling apart. So I do appreciate your kindness and trying to be careful
here. We're not doing group therapy or an investigative report here. Whatever you're comfortable with.
No, I understand. So there was a lengthy period there where the words just failed. I had no ability to. I tried. I thought, well, I'll write something, you know, the story that I was writing, I had written the first draft of it. In the first draft of the story, the brother is sick. Still is now in this draft, and it's on the cover, so I'm not giving away a spoiler that you wouldn't see. But what I did not realize in real life was that my brother was sick. And I probably had been picking up on some subtle cues because he did not know. He had not been diagnosed yet. Once he was diagnosed, I couldn't go back and write this book. I couldn't do the polish on it. I had no distance from it. I just couldn't do it.
I did not realize that it happened in that order.
Yeah. And so my agent was really happy with that draft and actually, you know, submitted it to a few people, and we had a lot of really positive stuff, but a couple of different people made some comments, and I realized what I could do to improve it. So we actually pulled it at that point. And I knew it needed a rewrite, and I just had no ability to do it. And my husband and I were Mike's caretakers here in New Orleans. So we really, you know, I took day shifts. Well, I took night shift and part of the day, and Carl would come in and relieve me at different times. And we would, I mean, Mike was mobile, but we just keeping him entertained and always being there, because there was always 5,000 things going on. And then when we did lose him, he made me promise I would finish writing this book, you know, and I shook my fist at him several times, but it took a long time for me to get back in the groove and be able to do it. But I was grateful he made me promise, because I wouldn't have gone back to it. And I don't know that I would still be writing at this point.
Wow.
I had started taking a lot of photos, because when the creativity dried up on the words, I was able to feel creative through photography and really find a voice there that I had never found before in photography. And I've always shot. I've shot since high school, but it's always just been, you know, shots. It's not been anything artistic and no attempt at it. And this gave me an avenue, and it kind of kept me creative. So when I came back to the book, the main character is a painter. She paints, but some stuff that's happening is very there's a lot of imagery that happens, and I think the photography ended up informing that. So it all folded back in.
Yeah. You know? We end up using everything. I think eventually, everything informs our work,
even when you don't want to. You know, yeah. I was determined. I was going to take out the brother being sick and take out some of that stuff, and the story falls apart without it, so it had to stay. And you know.
Okay, so you're working on this book, and you have an agent. You have a history with big publishing. What was your game plan at that point? How did you see developing your career? You've been away for a couple of years.
I honestly did not know what was going to happen. We had people who were interested in the book from traditional publishing, but it was not the kind of deals that I would think that, you know, they hadn't modernized the way they looked at publishing, the way the deals and stuff. Now, they have since then, and they have for some people who are proven in the indie world. You know, there are some indie hybrids out there that are friends of mine that, because they had kept publishing this whole time and they had more of an indie track record, you know, through self-publishing, they were getting some of those hybrid, you know, deals. And I saw that. I saw what they were getting, and I knew that my sales prior to stopping had been roughly the same. The problem is, I also knew I'm changing genres, and I'm going about as 180-degree opposite of what Bobby Faye is as you can go. And that is a lot for a publisher to try to absorb and figure out, how do we market her? How do we work? How do we change gears and get the readers to migrate over? So did you send this out to New York? It went out to some people. It went out to a few. It didn't go out to everybody or anything. It went out to a few. Now, this is the second draft. This is the second version. There had been a lot of interest. And at the end of the day, when all was said and done, I just wasn't happy with what we were hearing, what we were getting back. And I had some choices to make, and my agent was actually incredibly supportive. She felt the same way. She was very gobsmacked at what we were getting back offer-wise, and she felt like we should explore a different avenue as well. So I know the book is very dark. The book was, at the time when it went out with her draft, there was a couple of places in the book that I felt were not hitting 100%, that they needed hit, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was. And I ended up hiring a wonderful development editor, Ramona, that you know.
Right.
And she nailed it. She absolutely nailed it. So when I had it ready, I thought, I'm going to self-publish this. I'm not going back to New York. There's nothing that they can do for me right now that I can't do for myself.
Right.
And, you know, gone are the days when they're going to give you a very big advance, you know, especially if you're not with a proven track record. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't somebody that once a year you'll hear they sprinkled the fairy dust on and that person gets this $1 million advance because they're a debut author. Debut authors are a lot easier for a publisher to sell into bookstores than an author with a track record, because there's no track record.
Right, because all the bookstores have to do is look up BookScan, I think the name of it is.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, and it's a vicious cycle.
It is a vicious cycle.
Yeah. So
and the sad thing is when they look at BookScan, they'll look at, like, if you sold 5 books a store in every Barnes and Noble in America, Barnes and Noble will look up what you've sold and they'll go, oh, she sold 5, we'll order 4. Then we're protected. Right. They'll feel like well, if there's only 4 on the shelf.
The next time they look at you, they're like, well, she only sold 4.
She only sold 4. We'll order 3. And it's a spiral, and it's a death spiral, and I've seen it happen to hundreds of my friends.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about that unless you're indie publishing.
Right. And with some of these debut authors, this is really instructive, I think, for people who have stars in their eyes, is to go back and look at the last 5 years. Certainly the last 10 years, when people were getting some massive debut contracts. Mm-hmm. Their books would come out. I remember one, it was, I don't even know what genre it is, modern fantasy or something. Huge, huge money. The book came out, died. I don't think that author is publishing under that name.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about. Yeah. I think
yeah, when we turn this off, we can dish. So you have this book, you found the small press, or they found you, or
it's more as a self-published author, I came to the conclusion early on that I needed to hire PR people that knew what they were doing out in the field. I asked around because I had done a lot of PR myself for the Bobby Faye series. I spent money on ads. If I had an idea of how to do something and St. Martin's Press wouldn't do it or couldn't do it, and 9 times out of 10 it was because they really couldn't do it.
Oh, sure. No. I believe you entirely. This is not
right. I'm really not throwing stones, because I would come up with some really wild ass things, and I'm like, I would like to try this bizarre thing, and they were like, oh, that sounds great. You go do it. You know. But I would fund it, and I realized early on, I don't really know what I'm doing either. Some of the things that I did worked, and some of the things that I did didn't work. And maybe I should get a pro.
Well, that's the big secret to advertising.
Yeah,
50% of advertising works. We just don't know which 50%.
Which 50%. So I hired a really great firm, Nancy Berland firm, and Kim Miller, and they read the book and loved the book enough to say, wait a minute, we know a small press that you should go to. Now, I had already gone to a couple on my own. Prior to them, had contracts handed to me that I was like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way I would do these contracts. And that's the other thing about.
Can you discuss some of the
one of the issue? Yeah, I'll discuss an issue without saying who it is.
Yeah, no, sure.
One of the issues that you really have to look at in contracts is who has the final say over the book. A publisher has to have, ultimately, you cannot force them to publish something that they think is drag. But you, as an author, ought to have equal final say in what the final product is. In this particular contract, they had the right to come in and edit the book. And they only had to inform me of major edits. And I said, well, we will have to define what does major edit mean. Because if major edit means you only have to tell me if you completely scramble the book, but everything else is fair game, then no. You know, because all those other things that I've put into place in this book, if it's going to have my name on it, good or bad, you know, give me the blame. If it fails, it's my fault, you know, but I don't want other things in the book or things radically changed in the book to make you happy, and then the book fails and everybody thinks those were my choices. I'm perfectly okay failing flat on my face of my own choices, because this is not the last book I will ever write. This is not the last creative project I will ever do. And I think a lot of writers get very locked into, this is my baby. Well, no, it's not your baby. It is a book, and you will do more. And you've really got to let go of that. So that was one of the clauses. The second clause that really bugged me was that they had the right to assign my contract. This is without the business being sold or going under. They had the right to assign the contract. In other words, they could sell my contract to somebody else. And the problem that I had with that is, if you leave on there, tacked on to this contract, the right to edit and make changes, I would maybe be okay with them, because I knew who they were and I knew their ethics were very strong. They're very good people. Yeah. But I kept saying, if you get hit by a bus tomorrow, if you have some illness like my brother, and you know, you can't tell me that you're going to be here for 50 years. You can't promise me that.
You can't ever assume that the person you're doing the contract with is the one who will carry it out.
Exactly. You can't.
In anything, by the way.
In anything. My husband and I run a construction business. I've been in construction for 33 years now. You don't assume a single solitary thing. Somebody can say to you, you don't have to worry. This is what I'm going to do. This is who I am. And you can say, you know, that is incredibly lovely. Put it in writing.
Yep.
That's it. You know, if it's not in writing, it is not enforceable. And it doesn't, and if it is in writing, if it is in there, somebody will enforce it somewhere down the line. So I objected to those things. And this publisher that came to me this time, I was thrilled with her. She actually was going from one conference to another, and she detoured and came through New Orleans and sat down with me and went over the contract. And and it was a very quick business, type of meeting. But I was like, nope, 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 yes, nope, yes, no. And that's how we did it. It was really fast, because I've done contracts for 30 years. And so, so has she. And we really were in sync almost immediately. And she's a tough editor. I was like,
oh, she does the editing too.
She edited it. She actually has somebody else that does it with her. And she's, like I said, she's a very small press. But man, she was good. I was like, be careful what you wish for. I always said, I really, really want to find that editor that helps me get to that next level, that really improves my writing. And then it was like, she touched my words.
It was so perfect before.
My perfect words. It was so funny. And then when I read her edits, I was like, damn it, she's good. So I was really happy with it. But I mean, and I told her that. I told her exactly that. I was like, you touched my words, and then I liked it better. So it was really annoying. So I'm real happy with the decisions now.
Okay. So what is your game plan from at the moment? It's very funny. On a couple of boards I'm on, people talk about having 5 and 10-year plans. And I sometimes wonder if they're kidding, because things change so rapidly.
I barely have a 5-minute plan.
Yeah. Wait, who are you again?
Yeah, like, what were we talking about? Damn.
I mean, you have this book, and you have to, by the way, I see it's behind you there. And it has, and I'll have a copy of the cover on the webpage, but this is a beautiful cover.
Thank you.
Wait, hold it up again.
Oh,
Now say something.
something? The Saints of the Lost and Found.
There we go. And I'll have this on the webpage too for those of you who are listening to this on a podcast. That is a gorgeous, gorgeous cover.
Thank you, thank you. I shot the cover, but I actually got Murphy Ray of Indie Solutions to do the design work, to put it into. So when you look at the front and the back of the cover, Murphy actually designed it. She did a fabulous job. I was so over the moon for it. I actually had a different cover in mind, and I had shot it and worked on it in Photoshop, and it wasn't giving the feel of the book. And I couldn't put my finger on what was wrong with the cover. You know, it was one of those, it's pretty, but it wasn't memorable.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally woke up with this image in my head one morning and thought, I don't know how to do any of this. I've never done composite work before.
Right.
This is a composited shot. This is my granddaughter. She's sitting on a chest in my living room. And my husband and I got a green screen, and I made him throw rose petals for an hour until I got enough rose petal shots that I felt like I could composite those together. And I had been in Colorado visiting my older son, so I had taken some snow pictures, and then I had to learn how to composite. I had to learn, get into Photoshop and learn how to composite.
By the way, I had no idea that you made that cover. I mean, like really made that cover. Wow.
Yeah. I saw it. I woke up with it in my head, and it was a creepy image, but I woke up with it in my head and thought, I've got to figure out how to do that. And I don't know how, but I learned, and I loved it so much that I'm doing a lot more of this sort of work now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just love it.
For other people.
Well, I'm not really doing it for other covers right now. I'm doing it for the project that we have in the French Quarter that you know about.
Oh, yeah.
The downstairs thing. So, I'm being mysterious. But I will have more of that work to show there. So, and for some friends, I do compositing work too.
Okay. I keep playing with Pixelmator, and I just feel like it's talking a language I don't understand.
I feel like that with Photoshop and Lightroom. It was so many things to learn, and people would start talking about stuff, and I would just be clueless. And I got into this school called the Arcanum. It's an online photography school, and through them, I did get exposed to a lot of Photoshop and Lightroom skills.
Oh, okay.
But what I ended up doing more of is just, there are free tutorials out there. Ellen, his last name is Dewis. I'll have to, give you the name of. Right. He does little 5-minute YouTube things that it's like an epiphany, every freaking one of them, and it shows you learn how to do something really phenomenal in like 5 or 10 minutes. And so I've learned how to do the work for that.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
So what is your game plan now? You have this coming out when?
You're gonna circle back to that. I didn't distract you long enough.
No,
I
really only ever have 5 questions. So.
Yeah. Well, this book will come out February 23rd. The game plan right now is the publisher is doing, we did a really quick down and dirty arc. This is a digital, can you see that?
Yeah.
This is just and this is a little bit of the back, and you can't see the back as well. The digital printing muddied the colors a little bit. So that's one of the things we're going to be improving.
Right.
But, we did a quick digital print because I was going to Houston to an RT roundup type of event with about 77, I think, authors there, which was a lot of fun. But I wanted some advanced reading copies, or we call them ARCs, to give away there. And so the publisher jumped in and at the last minute and got those ready for me, which, bless her heart, I don't know how she did it. We're about to do a nicer round of prints for actual advanced reading copies that she wants to send out to reviewers. It did get reviewed in RT, but it had already been reviewed this summer before they even knew I was coming to the thing, which was very nice of them. And it got a 4.5-star review, which I was grateful for, because they don't give 5, and I was just thrilled that they read it. So their goal is to get it to a few more reviewers in this, because it's such a dark genre and it's such a different thing for me. They really want to try for that. Then it comes out in February, and my plan is to, market it as much as I can, and they're going to do some stuff. It will be available in every bookstore. Now, not every bookstore will necessarily stock it.
Yeah.
But it is a returnable book, and so anybody that wants it can order it, and it will be sold into libraries and cross our fingers.
So what is your game plan from here on out? I mean, you're in a world now where you are picking your own covers, right? I mean, you're making your own covers, let alone picking them.
I've had a lot of conversations about that with everybody, the agent, the PR people, and the publisher. And the thing is, what I want to write next is not even this genre exactly. It is a dark book. It's a very dark suspense type of, thriller, depending on how I pick the events to do. But I want to tell the Cajun story that a lot of people don't know anything about. And they don't realize that one of the first genocides that ever happened on North American soil were the Cajun people. So there are a lot of things that I want to do with that story. I know the character. I know the daughter of the man that I'm going to use, and she's real.
Mm-hmm.
And I have tracked her history down, and I'm related to her. I'm actually a descendant of that family. So it's very strange to kind of feel like I'm stepping into one of my ancestors' shoes, so to speak. But it's a historical thriller, which is different than this. So am I shooting myself in the foot career-wise? Probably so. Are there people out there who do a much better job of having a real career trajectory? Absolutely. If I was not also doing the project that we're doing here in the French Quarter and building this building and stuff, and my entire creativity focused on writing, then I might say to myself, well, you should probably do a sequel. And, I'm old and I have grandchildren, and I want to write what I want to write. And, I pray that people like what I write well enough to put up with me doing that and follow along and say, well, you can't depend on her to do what she did last time, and maybe you liked what I did before and you're not going to like this next thing, and that's okay too,
So you're not really fixated on, I must have a series and I must do X, Y, and Z. And because as I've mentioned on previous podcasts, that's actually making me crazy about the indie publishing world.
I think that there are two mindsets out there. And you have to tell me if we start running out of time, Diane, because I can talk to you for 2 hours. So I think there are mindsets out there that are very honorable no matter which way you go. One is the I need to feed my family mindset. And I've commented to several friends privately that if I had not had the construction business, if we only had my writing or my writing income had been primary, then I would have been absolutely insane after Bobby Faye not to write another comedic series immediately after and parlay the Bobby Faye popularity, such as it wasn't Janet Ivanovich level by any stroke of anybody's imagination. But I've been very, very blessed with the kindness of people who have championed those books, and to this day feel humbled by that, truly humbled, because people giving their own time to recommend a book and to go out and champion a book, I mean, that's a big deal. We're all busy. They're busy. They've got lives. So if I had been smart, if I was thinking career, then I would have gone at least, I wouldn't have necessarily continued the Bobby Faye series, because I really felt like she had been brought to a close. There's only so many times you can blow up the state of Louisiana without somebody going, wait a minute, this is too many times. So I felt like I could have done that, but that's not where my heart was. And I think when you start trying to make yourself do something that your heart is not in, the work is going to suffer. If you need to do it to feed your family, by all means, you know, there is nothing wrong with that. And, you know, there are a ton of talented people, far more talented than I am, who can keep writing in a genre and make it fresh and do it successfully. And I read those people voraciously, and I'm like the old commercial where the woman is at the window going open, open, open.
Yeah.
I'm like that at their, you know, at their websites. I'm like, when am I getting the next one? Okay, yeah. I know you just gave me one 5 minutes ago. I want the next one. So there's absolutely, that is an honorable and true path. I think the problem occurs where if you know that that's not how you're making your primary living, don't make yourself insane thinking you must do something, because there are just as many examples out there of people jumping into different genres and changing up what they do and building audiences, and those audiences cross-pollinating, and it works. So you can find other examples, you know, that are equally valid. I feel bad when somebody feels like that they have been told that this is what they have to do, and that's really not what they want to do.
Right.
And so it's crushing them, their spirit. And I'm like, you know, if this is what you want to do, yay, go for it. If that's not what you really want to do, there are other paths that you can take.
Right. Yeah, no, I see a lot of this. You must publish 86 books a year. You must do X, Y, and Z. You must, and it is, I think, really important to remember, you know, it's okay to figure out your own thing here.
It is.
Nobody is making you do this.
No, and I think that it's what makes people stand out is when they start figuring out their own thing. You know, it's in this internet flurry, we're burning some really good writers out, because they're I don't know if I can articulate this. Readers want to be supportive of writers. I found that so universally true. They want to cheer us on. They want to champion us. They want, and of course, if you can give them 4 books instead of 2, and they can give you money for that, they're thrilled, because they want you to keep writing what they love to read.
Yes.
So if, you know, if you're capable of doing that, they want you to do it. So what happens is the perception ends up sort of morphing to where writers feel like, if I don't do it, I'm going to disappoint them, and then they're going to go away. I've had enough readers who knew what I was going through with my brother, who wrote to me privately, you know, uninstigated, who said, and I'm going to get choked up over this, who said, you take your time. You do what you need to do. We're always going to be here, and we're going to follow you, whatever you do and whatever genre you go in. And I'm going to start crying.
Okay.
And
okay.
You can't, I mean, those people are just, they're worth gold. And there's so many readers out there that are such beautiful souls like that, and they will reach out to their favorite writer and they will say, I will do this for you, or I will do that for you, or I will spread the word, and I've let my friends know, and I've handed your book to multiple people so that I can get them involved in buying your series, and I've given away all my books and now I'm buying more. And I've had those kinds of letters. And so I would say to writers who are feeling that level of panic about their career, if I slow down, my career is going to go away. Yeah. That's really not true. If you're writing stuff that people are connecting to and you're making sales, then they're connecting to it. When you write the next one, they'll be there. When this book comes out, this will be 8 years, I think, if I've done the math right, since my last book came out. That's a long freaking time. It's a completely different genre. It's, it has absolutely nothing in common with Bobby Faye at all, with the maybe possible exception that you will recognize my voice. this is just told so very differently than Bobby Fay, just by necessity. And I've had some readers read it, and they're like, can I be on your street team? That was their response. Can I be on your street team? Can I help you? Can I do this? Can I tell people about it? Can I share this yet? And I'm like,
that's fantastic.
Oh my God. Yeah.
That's really great.
It's really great. So I would say, and I'm nobody famous. I'm not anybody special, you know? So I would say to other writers, you've got readers like that. They will help you. They will stick with you. They will help spread the word. Just ask them, you know, just say, you know, I don't quite know how to get the word out about this. Does anybody have suggestions? I'll be happy to sign a book for you, or I'll be happy to give you a t-shirt, or whatever you can afford to do. Maybe it's simply you put a character in your next book with their name on it. It doesn't have to cost you money. You know, there are ways of thanking readers that are great ways of thanking readers that you may not be able to afford to do anything expensive, but you can do some of the cool stuff that they like, you know. And I think we need to take the pressure off of writers to be making widgets.
Mm-hmm.
Give yourself enough time to enjoy this career choice that you've made. And if you enjoy writing 4 books a year and you thrive on it and you're the next Nora Roberts, God bless you, because I'll buy your books, you know. But if you don't enjoy it, don't waste your life. You don't know how long you've got. You know, my brother was a 5th degree black belt and was the healthiest freaking person on this freaking planet, you know, and he came down with the rarest of rare forms of cancer that had almost 0 survival rate. And he almost beat it, but he didn't beat, you know, the fungal infection to the brain cells. So he beat the cancer, but not the rest of it. And when you look at how short his life was and how many people he touched and how much good he did in the world as a teacher, because he taught karate and he took in students who maybe didn't have any money and their families couldn't afford to do it. He taught them anyway. And I mean, at his funeral, we lost count. Over 600 people signed. It was a very small funeral home. It was standing room only. There were another 200 or 300 people that we heard from later who had come, who couldn't get to the book to sign the book. And we got condolences and various things. And, oh, I was there and I know what you said. And so I knew that they actually had come. And in a very small town that he lived in, I mean, that was phenomenal. And he touched all those lives and he enjoyed what he did, as hard as it was, because sometimes financially it was very hard on him. He loved what he did and he thrived on it. And I would say to any writer that's trying to write 4 books a year, if you love what you're doing and it's not killing you and it's not hurting your life with your family and stuff, you know, that you want to do with your life,
right.
If it's hurting your life, there are other ways you can still have the same career, maybe even a better one.
Yeah. Well,
that's my soapbox.
That's your soapbox. That's a great soapbox. And I really wish more of the people who are on these boards could hear that, because that is really important. A lot of them are, I have to write 20 books this year because I need to have a backlist. And it's like, you're not enjoying what you're doing.
Right.
Stop and write this book.
Yeah.
Or don't write any books. It's okay.
Yeah. There's this really weird thing that, you know, it's like, you're not quitting writing, are you? And writers, you know, tend to have this feeling that if they're not writing, if they don't have the next book coming out, then somehow they are a lesser human being. And after going through everything with Mike and taking, because he passed away right at the end of 2012, so this Christmas will be 3 years. And you know, I look at the time I'm spending and I say, am I loving my life right now? Is this worth my time?
This is the only moment that is.
This is the only moment that is. And it sounds very zen and very new agey and everything, but it's not. It is critical.
Really wish I'd listened to that the first time I'd heard it.
Me too. Me too. I did a lot of stupid things, you know, for other people. I spent a lot of my life, you know, monitoring lists and helping out with things that weren't giving me joy.
Yep.
You know, and now I look at my life and I say, is this going to give me joy? Is this going to give my family joy? Am I bringing joy to other people around me? Am I am I one of those people that people are excited about being around because they know when they come with, and I'm not rah rah, cheer cheer, you know, fakey stuff. I'm just talking about, is there a sense of joy,
Yeah.
and not a sense of doom and stress. And that's my goal. My goal is to be the kind of person that brings joy, you know, and to enjoy my life while I'm doing it. And I'm, you know, I don't know how long I have.
Yep. That's true for all of us.
You learn it the hard way. There are people who, you know, they'll push themselves and then they'll slam up against health problems or something else and suddenly realize all of that time they spent was for nothing.
Yep. Well, this brings us to the end of another hour. Thank you so much, Toni. This has been really great.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
This has been a really fascinating look at the journey, and it really is a journey. There is no arrival.
No, there really.
I think a lot of people focus on the arrival.
They do.
And, you know, then what do you do?
Exactly. The bar always moves. Yeah. Always. I thought when I first had my first deal that everything was fixed. Everything was done. I had a deal. Yeah. And that was like the first little step. It's just, the bar always moves.
Yeah. So this has been another episode of the 21st Century Writer Podcast with our very special guest, Toni Causey, and I will have a link to her new book. Can we pre-order that?
It will be up for pre-order in November.
Okay.
I'll give you a link then so you can put it back on this podcast if you don't want.
Okay, great. And this has been your host, without a co-host, doing it solo this week. My name is Diane Patterson, and I hope you have enjoyed it. And we will see you again next time. Talk to you later. Bye.